nominate the following person to the position of Associate Justice of the District Court Circuit. I submit this nomination for the advice and consent of the Executive Council pursuant to Part 2, Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The nominee is William J. Galvin of Norwood, Massachusetts, to the position of Associate Justice of the District Court Circuit, which position was authorized under Chapter 206 of the Acts of 1988. I enclose his nominee's resume for your convenience. Sincerely, Charles D. Baker, Governor of Massachusetts. So those who don't know, the Executive Council is the official name of our council, but over the years it's become known as the Governor's Council, but it's still officially the Executive Council. With that said,
thank you.
We will hear from the Honorable James Coffey, First Justice of the Boston Municipal Court Division.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning, Judge.
How are you? Good morning.
Good. I suspect that there'll be a lot of people waiting for you to return rather than going into some of the other courtrooms in that building.
I'll you off today, but it's certainly, it's a pleasure to be here. My name is,
Some cases.
my name is James Coffey. I'm a judge in the BMC. It's a pleasure to be here and before this council. I'm here in support of Bill Galvin, a friend and a former colleague, and I support his candidacy 100%. I've known Bill about 25 years, mid-90s. Bill was an investigator on a team that I was on in the Suffolk County DA's office. I got to know Bill quite well then. We became friends, of course, colleagues. I realized how conscientious and diligent he was. He helped me with a lot of different cases. I was on a particular team, the senior trial team, with some sensitive, complex cases. And Billy was right in the middle of all that, and I really appreciated his help. We stayed friends throughout the years. He became assistant DA and eventually came over to Dorchester Court as the supervisor. That's a particularly important role, particularly over in Dorchester. It's a busy place, a lot of cases. And Billy came and did a wonderful job over there. He's level-headed. He knew the value of a case. Great to work with in resolving cases, again, in that busy courthouse. Eventually, Bill became a private lawyer. I'd see him occasionally. So he's got a great resume, wide variety of different experiences, which I think will work well for him in a busy district court. He's been a prosecutor. He's been a defense attorney. He gets it. I just wrote down a few descriptive words of how I feel Bill is. He's very conscientious. He's level-headed. He's reasonable. He's bright, he's hardworking, he's diligent, he's compassionate, he gets it. I think the important thing is he will treat people well that appear before him. Lawyers, witnesses, defendants, civil parties, jurors, and so forth. They'll have their day in court because of his experience, his common sense, and he's a good guy, and he'll treat people well. And I think that's the most important facet of being a judge, is give everyone their day in court and be polite, respectful to people, and he's got an abundance of that. So his experience will work very well as a district court judge, and I wish him the best. I'm 100% behind him.
Let me ask you one question. You think he'll be as good as you and Judge Coyne?
I'm not sure about Judge Coyne, but he'll surpass me 100%.
Thank you. Councilor Devane?
Nice to see you again.
She's been about 20 years or so.
20 years ago.
So one, so.
You look different. What happened? That's good.
Here's a different color.
Tell me, is there any case that comes to mind that you saw this nominee that was so impressive to you?
Well, I was doing a lot of homicides at the time, and Bill was my main investigator. And we did a lot of gang murders, and people were wanted to testify, frankly, and Bill was so helpful in getting people into court. Each homicide is as important as the next one. I don't want to particularly pick any particular one out, but as you may know, some of those cases they linger for a while, and to maintain the cooperation from the witnesses, Billy was on top of that. He was so helpful. In those cases, they're important cases, and I trusted him. I trusted his discretion in all those cases.
Well, we haven't seen you, so welcome.
Okay.
And, one of my proud votes.
Okay, thank you.
You're doing a wonderful job. Thank you for your service. But I appreciate it, and your testimony means a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Next witness is the Honorable Michelle Kelly, Clerk Magistrate of the Rentham District Court, who I think was here 5 years ago this month.
5 years ago yesterday,
Yeah. You had a tough hearing, I remember.
thanks to Google Photos that popped up yesterday on my telephone. So yeah, it was 5 years ago yesterday. Thank you.
Okay, why should we vote?
Good morning, counselors. As you heard, my name is Michelle Kelly, and I had the pleasure of being here 5 years ago, and I'm just grateful to be in this chamber again, and as an employee of the trial court, appreciate the work that you do, because it's what we see every day in the courthouses. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about. You all have Bill's credentials, so I'm just going to take a few moments and just tell you about, Bill, as I know him, as an attorney who comes to the Rentham District Court. I'll talk a little bit about him as a person as well. So I met Bill in 2009. He had quite a few private cases at the Rentham District Court. And then a couple of years later, he was a bar advocate assigned primarily to the Rentham Court. So since 2011, I see him usually several times a week on different types of cases. And, he has private cases and court appointed. And one of the best compliments that I can give Bill is, as a clerk in the session, as workers in the courthouse, we never know whether he's there for a private case or for an appointed case. And I think that just speaks volumes of who he is. He treats everyone equally and fairly, and he goes the extra mile with his clients. And, I use the words equally and fairly because it's so important as a judge to be fair, whether the person is someone who has a private attorney or whether the person is an indigent court-appointed defendant. I think that it's important for a judge to always make sure that everyone is treated fairly and the same. I recall a case where Bill was appointed to represent a defendant. The defendant was actually arrested for stealing authentic Tom Brady memorabilia from the Patriots Hall of Fame. On one occasion in the lockup, he was actually wearing a pair of Tom Brady's game pants. And this case comes to mind because there were significant mental health and competency issues. The media was there almost every time the case was called. There were 5 cases in total, 5 criminal cases, and several dates, several motions to revoke bail. It was a pretty involved case. And, again, Bill stands out, this case stands out, and Bill as an attorney stands out to me through this case because he was unfazed by the media attention. He was interviewed outside, and it was, again, a high-profile case. And, one thing that when he was leaving, I recall saying to the staff in the courthouse, he's the kind of attorney that he won't even probably talk about this case to anyone, even though it was a big, deal and everyone was going into the courtroom to listen to it. And I just think it's an example of his professionalism, his compassion, and probably most importantly, just his integrity and respect for what we do in the courthouse. Bill is respected by the court staff and fellow attorneys and judges. When a probation officer comes to our office preparing for a surrender hearing, we have to tell them who the bar advocate is of the day. And whenever I say it's Bill Galvin, they just are happy because they know that he'll be on time, he's prepared, he knows his cases well, does a great job, is fair, again, to everyone, and is easy for everyone to work with, is easy for the DAs to work with, easy for the probation officers to work with, extremely respectful to the staff, calm, even-tempered, similar to what Judge Coffey said. I've never seen Bill upset or inappropriate in any way, and I've seen him, win motions, win trials, win bail arguments, but I've also seen him lose them, and I've never seen him express any inappropriate, emotion or body language or anything. And again, I bring that up because it's so important as a judge to have a very calm demeanor on the bench. It's something that we as people in the courtroom all the time, we really care about that. And Bill makes all of us in the court system look good as a bar advocate. And I hope that you will look favorably on his nomination because I think that he will be an exceptional judge. He's a man of great character, a true professional, and I'm thrilled at the possibility of him coming to the district court as a judge. So
Thank you. Any questions for the great clerk of the Rentham District Court? Councilor Domingue?
Happy anniversary.
thank you. Time flies.
I'm especially happy when someone comes and I have voted for them.
Thank you.
And that was a proud vote.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And thank you for your service. When you saw, Bill, before you, what impressed you? What characteristic impressed you the most over the years?
I would have to say, first, I would have to say he's always prepared. He's never calling saying, I'm running late, I need a new date. He's steady, he's consistent, dependable. That's the first thing that comes to mind, just a general, something that we appreciate, again, as court staff. And I'm always grateful for just his calm demeanor. It's consistent every day. It doesn't change. And, I see him in the hallway. I see him in the parking lot. I see him talking to family when I know the defendant is downstairs, either sectioned on a Section 35 commitment or held with bail. And I see him leave the courtroom and go right out to the lobby with the family. And I respect that. I just feel that he cares what the family, thinks. He understands that they probably have no idea what happened in the courtroom. And he always takes it upon himself to go outside with the family or the defendant or both and explain, okay, here's where we go from here.
That's great.
So that's something that, again, I have the pleasure of
see that all the
observing.
time.
I don't,
No,
yeah,
no.
and it's
I
outstanding.
have to tell you, and I've said it before, it means a lot that who comes to testify. I mean, I've been here a long time, and I've seen people sit in that chair, and I've said, well, how many cases have you seen this nominee? Oh, one time. Are you kidding me? But I mean, he chose the best witnesses because you people know him all these years and you observed him. And that means a lot to me, and your testimony means a lot. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Good to
Thank
see
you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, and I just want to tell you what a pleasure it is to go to Rentham Court. Staff is wonderful, and it's just a pleasure to be in your clerk's.
Thank you.
The next witness is Edward Krippendorf, Eisenstedt, Krippendorf, and Galvin.
Counsel, I did put him down, but I don't think I prepared him to speak.
Oh, okay.
He was kind of backup.
Well, we don't want to do that, because I know when you get up and speak and you're not prepared, you could lose this nomination for us.
I echo everything that was said by the two previous witnesses. So.
All right.
But hearing no further witness on your behalf, anybody here against? Anybody here against? Hearing none, make your statement to us, and if you want to introduce the people you brought.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In terms of who's here with me, going around the room, obviously Judge Coffey, who I've been with for a long time. Richard DeMeo, who was my first boss in the DA's office. He was the chief investigator there when I was hired in my early 20s. My beautiful wife, Tara, of 21 years. We met in the office. She was a victim witness advocate at the time. Of course, Michelle Kelly, the great clerk in Rentham. Over here, Justice Coyne, formerly of the Boston Municipal Court Central Division, tried many cases with Judge Coyne and spent a lot of time in his session, thankfully. And my two law partners over here, Attorney Joseph Eisenstadt and Attorneys Ed Krippendorf, who refused to give a speech today, apparently. The two of us have been together now, well, Ed and I about 25 years, and Joe 20, I'd say roughly. And I really appreciate them being here today. As far as a statement, I really just want to be brief and just say thank you.
We love brevity here.
Yes, I know you do. In terms of that, first of all, I would like to thank the members of the Governor's Council for their time today, and especially for taking time out of your busy schedules to either meet with or otherwise speak with me over the last 2 weeks, and particularly to my head host counsel, Robert Jubinville. Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito for their confidence, trust in me, and the same certainly goes for members of the Judicial Nominating Commission and the Joint Bar Committee. And to Lauren Green Petrino, Robert Ross, Emily Gauthier, Caitlin Babbitt, and Valerie McCarthy for their support, guidance, and patience during this process. Thank you to Jim Coffey, Judge Jim Coffey and Clerk Michelle Kelly for being here and offering such kind words on my behalf. I'm very grateful for that. And others that came with me, I owe so much to. First attorneys Krippendorf and Eisenstadt. We've known each other for over 20 years, since that time at the DA's office. And now for 11 years, the three of us have been working together to help do a lot of good for a lot of good people in this state. Most importantly, they've become two of my closest friends, and I want you both to know that I appreciate you. And you should know that the firm will just not helplessly collapse, despite the fact that I've been telling everybody that it will, if I'm appointed. And also thank you to, who's not here, to our esteemed of counsel, David Eisenstadt, for all that he's done for me throughout the years and has been certainly invaluable. And finally, as I mentioned, the best thing to come out of my time at the DA's office, who loves it when I point her out at speeches, is my wife, Tara. We've been together since 1996, married for almost 21 years. Your encouragement and support during this process, as it always is, has been incredible. And we have three amazing teenagers that we're both extremely proud of. It has not escaped me for a second how fortunate I am to be here today. I want you, the council, to know that I believe, because of my professional life experiences that you have before you and reviewed, and how I was raised, that I would be a great fit as a judge, in particular to the district court. That's just a bit of insight as to why I believe I would be a good fit in the district court. And you have my qualifications. I believe in what the district court can do for people, whether it's to help them be safe, feel safe, or to guide them to the right treatments, programs, or other alternative dispositions. And I want to help facilitate those goals, and I feel that I'm well positioned to do so. I'm grateful and I'm humbled to be here, and I thank you for your time, and would certainly welcome any questions.
Thank you very much. I just have one quick question for you. Did you get that deck painted?
I did. Yes.
Devaney, your time starts now.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too.
Time that you spent with me.
Of course.
We closed the diner.
And then some.
Yeah, when they
Yes.
start, putting lights on and off, it's time to go.
The food was great. I was just waiting for some banana bread at the end of it. It was great.
First of all, I'm very pleased that you applied and that the governor appointed you. Now, a lot of people don't know the procedure, that there are 21 lawyers of the Judicial Nominating Committee, JNC, that are appointed, and they have the awesome responsibility to recommend you to the governor. The Governor's Council only votes for one person. We don't know who applied, and they have all the authority. Now, out of those 21 who had that responsibility, how many were at your hearing?
There were 2 on Zoom, and I would say another, estimating, I think another 9 in the room, so probably about 11.
More than half of those people voted, and I don't mean to point you out, but this is how it is all the time. 21 have never been there at the hearing. 21 have never talked to the, to the nominee or seen them at a hearing or called or anything, but they vote. And I just want to put that out. I want people to know. I can't do anything about it, so I just want to say it. But I just want to say that I was so impressed with you. Mostly, I look for compassion, and I won't vote for anyone for any position if they don't have compassion. And when I saw all the time you've taken in your career, pro bono, the people who can't afford a lawyer, I think that's wonderful what you've done. The other thing is that you have done is, and you won't toot your own horn on all of us, but you follow up on these people to see what they've done with their lives. I wonder how many lawyers do that, And the other thing is, you've been both. You've been a prosecutor and you've been a defense attorney. You've got criminal and you've got civil. And the one thing that I love the experience you've had, in a state office, attorney, but also I really favor private practice. Because I've always thought you choose who you're going to represent. And if you're in an office, they're giving you the name, the police have given you you're halfway there with their, with their documentation. So anyway, but I just wanted to say that I was so you're good writing. I look for writing, the ability to write, and you do. Maybe I'll start with that. Tell me about the writing that you gave, because we're having a lot of these people that are killing people on the road and pleading the scene. Tell us about the writing that you submitted.
Oh, it was a sample motion to suppress on a woman that was charged with operating under the influence. I believe it was the third offense. We tried to resolve the case beforehand, but we couldn't at that point. And what happened was there was an accident, and witnesses saw the vehicle pull into a particular house. The police went there, and my client, her boyfriend, answered the door. It was his house. And some things went on with the police, and ultimately they continued to tell the individual to come down, to go in and get her out. And they did that multiple times. She refused to come out. She refused to come out, and finally they kept giving strict warnings: get her out here, or we're gonna have to go in, type of thing. They didn't have the authority under the law to do that, so the motion was based around the police having the boyfriend act as an agent of the police to do something that they otherwise could not do, because she eventually acquiesced and came outside, gave some statements, gave field sobriety tests, which ultimately led to the evidence against her. So the motion was based on whether or not the police had the authority to treat this boyfriend as an agent, even though she had the right to be in the house, according to him, and that's what happened. She came outside, gave tests, was placed under arrest, and that's what the motion was based on.
I think the experience that you bring to the bench is very valuable, being involved in the gang unit and district attorney and all of that. Do you want to tell us, how does that help you be more rounded and with that experience to go on the bench?
From both sides, you mean? Well, I think it's a crucial thing for me in my position to have done that, because you get an appreciation of sort of both sides of the coin. You have, as a district attorney, certainly learning one way of it, but when I became a defense attorney, you really get to appreciate a defendant's side of it. As a prosecutor, you're certainly listening to defense attorneys, and they're trying to humanize their clients to you, and it does to a degree. But when you go out on your own, certainly one aspect of appreciating opening a business and a profession and all that entails, and the joys and pains of that, but also really building on having a compassion for people, because you learn really how this affects people, whether it's through alcohol problems, mental health problems. You get to talk to their family. You just get more well-rounded, and I think a deeper appreciation.
Also, in your private life, your involvement with multiple sclerosis. Do you want to tell us about that, how you got involved in that?
Sure. I have a close childhood friend who suffers from MS, and I had an opportunity to be involved there's a ride that occurs every year for MS. It's actually at the end of this month, and it's a 2-day ride. It ends up being about 180, 200 miles from Quincy to Provincetown. So I got involved with that with a team, and more importantly, it's a big fundraising event. And last year, I think our particular team of about 15 of us raised over $25,000, and as a whole, it's I think it was over $1 million.
You answered the question about the strength of the court that you're going to, that I've never seen in 23 years. And I'm not going to read it. I want you to tell us how you answer that. It was very different than I've ever seen, and I liked it.
I think it's just, to me, it's I know it's been referred to as the People's Court, but it's a place where people can go for a variety of reasons, whether it's a victim coming in, a plaintiff coming in and looking for a restraining or whatever.
You had, in that answer, you said, as a judge, you would tell us what you put, how you would
Can I take a peek? I don't-
I can find it.
As a judge? It might be about the specialty courts, was it?
No, it's asking you, what do you believe the strength of the court is where you're going?
Yes.
And you think, I should have marked it, but I was so impressed with it because I've never seen anything like that. Because you talked about that if you have, now I'm paraphrasing, if you have someone with a drug problem or some kind of a mental issue, whatever, before you, that you will follow up and you will continue with that person to see that they have got the help that they need.
I think follow-up is crucial and not just to have someone come in and let them go. And that's what I've done as a defense attorney. And I know a lot of the courts have very helpful specialty programs with good staff and social workers that do the follow-up as well. I don't remember exactly what I put, but I think it's along those lines.
Seen that they put, that you went beyond the question and said that as a judge, I will follow up to see that that person is getting the help that they need for their, for their particular problem.
I don't remember putting that, but I think that's something that
But it impressed me because I haven't
to the
seen.
best of my abilities would make sense.
I like the idea that you've had more criminal, because I think in our society now it's prevailing, and I think that we do need someone. I mean, council just appointed someone 4 months ago, no experience at all in the court, no criminal experience. That's not what we need. We don't need someone that was working as an assistant solicitor in a city hall to be a judge. That scares me. And and it's unbelievable. He was rejected as a clerk magistrate 2 prior years ago before the JNC. And he hasn't done anything criminal, hasn't never seen a criminal case, and now they made him a judge. So I'm telling you, I am so pleased that you were appointed, because I've seen people who are not qualified, and I've seen a lot of people that I'm so proud of that I voted for. So I want to say that publicly, that
I appreciate that.
I'm so pleased. You have it all. I mean, you've worked at, right, in district attorney general, all of that. So you've worked with the best, and you've got all that experience to go on your own. Now, why did you decide to go on private practice?
Well, mainly 2 reasons. One was financial. I mean, I had just had, I think my son was 6 months old, and I had been in the DA's office for a long time. At that point, it was, including my time as an investigator, was over 13 years. But financially, I think we were in a position that we needed to at least give it a shot to go out. But I also had a big interest in it. I always respected people that went out on their own and try to run their business. And I knew it took me 2 years to leave. I had tried to leave 2 years before and was sort of talked into staying and supervising Dorchester for a couple of years. And at that point, I was starting to get some cases that I think would have bogged me down there a little bit longer. It certainly wasn't, my time in the DA's office was invaluable, and I would never regret it. It wasn't any bad thing that I left. It's just, I think we thought it was time to give the defense a shot, and I'm glad I did, because it's for 13 years. It's been amazing.
But you have cases as long as 3 years? You've had cases that have gone on for 3 years?
I had a civil case that went on for 3 years, if you're referring to one in the application, but most of them go on for about a year or 2.
What will always stay with you, one particular case that you had that, I know there's probably a lot in your mind, but is there one that will always stay with you?
Counselor, your time is up. Sorry.
We're timed 8 minutes, isn't that awful?
Counselor Ryanella.
I want-
Counselor Ryanella,
All about you.
please. Counselor Devaney, time's up. Counselor Ryanella.
My time is up. I'm so sorry, because I wanted you to answer that
I
question.
appreciate that. Thank you, Counselor.
Pleasure speaking with you. We had a lengthy conversation over the phone.
Yes. Thank you.
It was good. Just to follow up on Councilor Devaney, she said something like, you had a case for 3 years. To have a case for 3 years, again, I don't know nothing about the case, and I don't want to know about it. must be okay with whoever you went in front of several times.
Excuse me, Counselor Ianella, I cannot hear your question.
Oh, I'll try to speak louder. Thank you.
Thank you.
You had a case, at least one case, I'm sure you had more, at least this one case that she's referring to. It went on for 3 years, so you must be a supporter of continuances, because I am.
Yes. Absolutely.
Because there's people, especially like you and law partners here, you gotta pay the rent, you gotta pay the electric bill, the paralegal, whatever else. And, client comes in the night before and you got a feast somewhere, you may have to ask for continuance, so you're good with continuance.
I would be hypocritical if I wasn't, because I've been in that position several times, and I am very good with continuances, yes.
Oh, that's good. Let me ask this, what's your position for, I'm a fan of rehabilitation,
Yes.
if possible, as opposed to incarceration? Your views on that?
Same, absolutely, especially in the district court. I think incarceration should be an absolute last resort. And, we've had several instances of rehabilitation that have worked great, like we talked about, that I've kept in touch with clients, and but that certainly should be the focus to me in the district court specifically.
I know I've never met him, I don't think, before. Your partner, Joseph Eisenstadt.
Yes, he's here with us. Yes.
What a wonderful father. David
He's the best.
Eisenstadt.
Yes.
He's such a nice guy. Great attorney. But he's such a nice person. And that's what I'm trying. He's a super guy. Thank you very much.
He's been so good, to us over the years, and I talk to him multiple times a week, and he's the best.
Yeah, well, that's good. I don't have any questions. Your Councilor Jubinville, big supporter of yours.
Great.
You got a great resume. Look at the group you have here. Michael Coyne. We go way back. We go way back before he even was in law school. That's right. We worked together as custodians.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Going to law school.
Oh, wow.
I think I was in my first year. He was in his last. He's older than I am. See, meet people here. And, look forward to you in your name.
I appreciate that, Counselor. Thank you very much.
Counselor Duff is struggling through traffic to get here, so she's not here. I know Counselor Kennedy's here, but we'll go to Counselor DiPaolo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning.
Good morning, Counselor. How are you?
Good, thank you. When Counselor Devaney was questioning you, it came up about transitioning from prosecutor's office to the defense attorney role, and how that gave you a deeper appreciation, I think is what you said, for I guess the condition of the clients or the defendants, I guess.
Sure, yes.
So when you move to the defense side and you're working with people in a kind of a different way, you have a different role to play, it changes your perspective. Did it ever make you reconsider anything that you did or saw happen as a prosecutor? Do you think that perspective, if you had it ahead of time, would have made?
I don't know if it would have changed anything. Maybe in my earlier years as a prosecutor, before I sort of, I think somebody mentioned it, to appreciate the value of a case and things like that, dealing with minimum mandatory sentences and any discretion that we may have had. But I think it's more along the lines of sort of reinforced in that perspective as opposed to changed it.
Okay.
But I think I've learned greatly from being a defense attorney and having been on both sides.
And especially in your court-appointed work, I would think you've dealt with a lot of clients who, in your application suggests as much, either are actively dealing with substance abuse disorder or any other challenges they're facing. So do you feel like you learned more about those clients as a defense attorney than you did as a prosecutor?
Absolutely.
So when you think about being a judge, and you had written in your application regarding discretion that information that judge can have at his or her disposal is paramount to using their discretion. So as a prosecutor, you're not getting the full story of the defendant. As a defense lawyer, you're probably not either, but you're getting closer, right? So as a judge, how would you go about making sure that you have all the information you need?
I think it has to be asking questions, but in encouraging the client's attorney to give me as much information as possible, and based off of my experiences. One of the things I used to do a lot I do as a defense attorney. Not every case, but a lot of them is either a sentencing memorandum and outlining everything I can for the judge. You need to give a judge as much information as possible to make an informed decision. As a judge, if I'm not getting that, I'll ask the right questions, and if we need to get another date to get that information, that's fine. You have so much time from the time a person comes in an arraignment to the end of a case. What I wouldn't want is an attorney at the end of the case saying simply, hey, he's doing really good at, where are you going to school? Where do you work? That type of thing.
Right.
So you have all that time in between to do that. And as a judge, I think it would be my role to, within limits certainly, to encourage them to get me that information.
And you agreed with Counselor Iannella, you, in theory, would prefer rehabilitation to incarceration where it's appropriate.
Absolutely.
And so as a defense attorney or otherwise, have you had occasion to visit House of Corrections?
Oh, sure.
How recently would you say?
I did 3 visits last week.
Okay. So, and we've heard that you sometimes follow up with clients or clients follow up with you after the fact.
Yes.
Have you ever had clients who came out of a sentence feeling like it was putting them on the right path?
I have, I'm sure, but oftentimes I have not because they've come back to me. So
What's your experience with that? What kind of things are they coming?
I think it's inconsistent, depending on the facility and what's available to them there for programs and such. I know, with the recent, the reform bill, they're attempting to put more programs in and things like that. But it depends, sometimes it depends on what sentence you have in terms of long waiting lists.
Right.
So
I was at a parole hearing last week, and the gentleman there was on the waiting list for, I think, 11 or 12 programs.
Yeah.
And he couldn't even keep straight which ones. It's like, I'm just trying to get into a program.
Right.
But
others have come out with their GED and things like that, which have been positive.
We continue to have in Massachusetts the highest Latino incarceration rate in the country. There's obviously no one reason for that, and there's no one person who can fix that. What do you think about that? You've been on both sides of the criminal ledger. Why do you think that's happening?
I don't think there's any one reason. I think it's probably a number of reasons, and I think it starts early, and I think maybe everybody's to blame, right? You have it could be somebody coming from an over-policed area that gets pulled over for rolling through a stop sign at 12 o'clock in the morning at Blue Hill Ave, and all of a sudden that leads to a search of the trunk and there's cocaine in it. So now they're coming into court. It could be a defense attorney who says, oh, you have no record, you are continuing without a finding, that's wonderful, great, see you later, instead of actually going an extra mile. So now it's trickling up, and now they get more of a record. It could be a judge that just focuses only on the record and not sort of circumstances at hand or rehabilitation. And then all of a sudden you have individuals who have 3 continuous without a finding, and now it's time for a guilty. Just things like that they're focusing on. I think they trickle up. And
would that impact you as a judge looking at someone's history?
In terms of
Well, does it lead to
record?
I don't want to say discount. How does it impact your evaluation of someone's history when you're thinking about sentencing?
I mean, I think I would look at somebody's criminal history, but that certainly is not the end all be all. Specifically, if it's a nonviolent offense, if it's a drug addiction issue, you want to just keep trying until you can get it right. Specifically on nonviolence.
Sometimes rehabilitation takes
time. Oh, absolutely.
Takes multiple steps, right?
There's always relapse.
So you've worked with the gang unit at Suffolk, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So, in terms of sentencing disparities in our state, it happens at Superior Court, not at district, but guns and weapons. And a lot of that, I would think, comes down to gang activity. I know in my city of Worcester, that's a problem. firearms and drugs and gang activity is a problem. And firearms and drugs are where the sentencing disparities happen. So it's kind of like, these are real problems. What do you think about that? Your experience in the gang unit, do you think things are in fact being done fairly, or do you think that things are being overblown, or how would you describe your sense of the situation?
I mean, from my experience of it, which was early 2000s for a few years, in our unit, a lot of those cases were you dealt with minimum mandatories, right? So you had armed career criminals, minimum mandatory, well, on the firearms certainly, and then those second, third offenses that have those minimum mandatories. But we used our discretion to try to weed these things out early and see how we were going to charge. Things like that. I was fortunate to have a good supervisor in the office, and we were able to use our discretion as best we could. And again, to rely on defense attorneys who can give us some more information. Why is this happening? Why is this person walking around with a firearm? Those types of things.
Because I'm sure you've had have you had occasion to interact with situations where someone is in court on a weapons charge and they're not gang affiliated, they're legitimately interested in self-defense?
Yes.
Because of their neighborhood, because of their family, whatever it is.
I actually just finished a case with that exact scenario in Brockton. It was an individual who he got into a car accident and was found with a firearm, but it's my job as defense attorney, so to help establish and show them not part of any gang, he had no criminal history, and try to humanize that person to the district attorney's office so that they could hopefully reduce that charge.
I appreciate your time this morning.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the questions.
You had some more time if you wanted. That went off.
I appreciate it, Mr. Chair, but I'm not going to take it.
Can I have time?
Maybe I'll reserve it.
Councilor Kennedy.
I'll just finish up his time, because I don't have a lot.
Okay.
How much time do I have left?
You have 12 minutes.
4 minutes?
Yeah.
58 days. Overused?
DA's office? Yes.
We've been in court a number of times where they file a motion for detention for 3 days, so they can do a 58-day.
Yes.
Then you walk in, and 3 days later, and they say, okay, we'll agree to conditions.
Yes. Yes.
Why are you holding people for 3 days?
I don't know.
Sometimes they have little or no record, right?
Yes.
What are you gonna do when the other judge and the DA files that motion and says, Judge, we need 3 days?
Well, I mean, I think the way I interpret the law, they have to be held for 3 days. However, I think
They have to show good cause. Why they can't go?
assuming they find,
Okay.
assuming they find,
The question becomes, what's good cause? I was in court yesterday where I saw a DA say, well, Judge, there's a victim here, we haven't talked to her yet. Well, of course you haven't talked to her yet, you just got the paperwork,
yes.
right? What's wrong with saying, go talk to her, get her here? We can do this at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Or tomorrow morning. You know, you're gonna liberty away for 3 days, who may never go to jail. I was up in Newburyport not too long ago, where they held a 54-year-old woman who had an argument with her daughter over the room being cleaned and led to pushing. It's shocking. I'm sure that never happened anywhere in the Commonwealth of the country before. And she was held for 3 days before I got her out. The woman with no record, 54 years old.
Right.
And then I show up in court, the DA agrees the conditions, which weren't even particularly strong conditions, and says this will probably be a cooperative dismissal eventually. Why are we locking people up like that?
I don't know. I mean, one of the things that I've done as a defense attorney, when you're sort of stuck in that position and the judge is going to hold for the 3 days, is skip the 3 days and try to get an agreement of lesser.
How about you're on the bench and you put their feet to the fire?
That's what I mean.
Today, so that you can evaluate and decide whether this person's liberty should be taken away. There's no reason you can't do that. Half of the time, 3 days later, they're saying, we're going forward on the paperwork. Right?
Right.
Can you go forward on the paperwork right then?
I think I would encourage them to do that right away. Like I
Encourage them, you're the judge. You can make them. We're doing this at 2 o'clock. Right?
Yes.
You gonna do that?
Yes.
You have a lot of support out there. got a million calls on you. Sat down, I don't have a lot of questions. We spent an hour and a half or so together the other day, and you answered all my questions. You brought in some heavy hitters here, my friend Michelle Kelly, Richie DeMeo, and Judge Coyne. You know, I discovered something after Judge Coyne retired, that they have these things called jury trials. And I do a lot of them now that Judge Coffey's in charge. But no, you're gonna be terrific. I'm gonna vote for it.
I appreciate that, Counselor.
Council Ferrara got tied up. He was on his way here. And he wanted me to express that he was gonna support you and he was gonna talk to you later on.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. Thank you, Counselor.
And by the way, Jubinville's been a big fan too.
It's great.
Said, huh? Council Jubinville.
Oh, thank you very much. Counselor Hurley. Counselor Hurley.
Yes, yes,
Okay, you're up.
I'm up.
Morning,
Um,
Counselor.
Good morning. We had a great conversation. I think you've got an excellent resume. Your application was outstanding. I too have a friend with MS, so that's close to my heart. And usually by the time it gets to me, sitting in the 8th seat, there's not a lot of questions left to ask. Why didn't you bring your kids?
To me, this is, you know, an interview. I think if I get past this, I would have them there for a swearing-in ceremony. But one is in school, one I'm sure is still sleeping. I think my oldest that just graduates home watching Stranger Things. I think they're okay.
Okay. Well, absolutely have them at your swearing in, and before you have your swearing in, absolutely make sure you have a robe. I think I told you that story.
You did.
So, Councilor Jubinville is a big fan. I don't get a lot of calls. They don't know the western part of Massachusetts exists. But like I said, you've got a great application, a great resume, and I'm going to vote for you. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Counsel. I appreciate it. Thank you for the talk yesterday.
Thank you, Counselor Hurley. I just wanted to follow up on Counselor Kennedy's remark about jury trials. When I'm through.
Yeah, just a point of order.
What?
Just a point of order. You have a rule that I do have 5 minutes, so I just wanted to remind you that I would be able to have a follow-up 5 minutes.
I know the rules.
I just wanted,
Yeah.
thank you.
On jury trials and jury waive trials, you know, you've been around quite a bit in the courts, so you know there's certain judges that you never jury waive with.
I do.
Yeah. We won't mention them, but they're judges that never have said not guilty that I know of in their career. But I always think of it when it happens to me and I see somebody on the bench that I would never jury waive with, and I go, what an awful legacy that is for a judge, that nobody would jury waive in front of them. Because they don't think they're fair. And I know you're not going to be one of those people that have that legacy.
I wouldn't.
I know my sister brings up the JNC a lot, so I did a little inquiry in the JNC. So as I understand it, there are 21 members of the JNC. And what they do is they split up the evenings. Half of them take one set of nominees, half of them take the other. And they start about 6 o'clock, and sometimes they go till midnight doing interviews with people. They live in Western Massachusetts, Worcester, Cape Cod, the North Shore. So it's quite a trip getting in and then leaving and going home, and sometimes not getting home until 1 or 2 in the morning. And before they vote, the ones who haven't seen the hearing that they weren't at, they have to look at those hearings, so they spend that time doing that. So they put a lot of time and effort into that position. Do you know how much money they're paid?
I don't think they're paid.
Not. They do it for nothing. So we are the governor's council, and we are the only body that can hire a clerk or a judge. And we meet once a week, and we get paid for it. So I think sometimes the JNC gets a bad rap, but they're kind of committed to do that. I don't know whether I would be thinking going into that procedure and spending the amount of time they spend. And then they have meetings among themselves as far as not only voting, but, vetting people. They have to make all kinds of calls, and on your application, all those names you put on, they make all those calls on their own time. It's a lot of work. So anyway, I think you're a great candidate, and I'm going to be glad to vote for you.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Devaney, you got 5 minutes.
First of all, I would be remiss if I didn't mention this, so I'm going to talk fast because I only got 5 minutes. You've been involved in St. Vincent de Paul Catholic Charities,
Yes.
financial help for people, providing spiritual guidance, housing, furniture to the children, Christmas gifts. You've been a coach. You've been the board of directors in Norwood. You have been a mentor in Iona College, which is wonderful. And this is personal. I really have to ask you, as a widow of a firefighter, you were a lecturer for the professional firefighters in Massachusetts, off-duty conduct.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes, we actually, as a firm, do a lot of work with the firefighters through the union. So when they get arrested for whether it's OUIs, domestic violence, whatever it is, we've been hired to represent them. Not all the time, but a lot. So we do have that connection. So they did ask us to be lecturers each year to that conference to go over things such as criminal aspects, OUIs, domestic violence, restraining orders, those types of things. It was actually yesterday. I didn't go, but Joe and Ed handled it yesterday, and I heard they did a great job. So, but I did not go this year. But it's good. It's a rewarding experience, and we have positive feedback, and they've kept asking us back. We didn't do it last 2 years because they didn't have it because of COVID, but that's something that we're pretty proud of to do.
Well, thank you for all your pro bono work and for reaching out to people who don't have the means and all these different ways that you have, even to the children in Norwood and to the college students. So I personally want to thank you for all of that. And that's why I meet with you. I meet with everyone because I want to know the personal, not just what's on this paper. And your compassion is what really drew me to you. All the things that you've done off the bench and continuing with your clients is amazing. So thank you so much. And I'm so pleased that you, and first time that you applied and that you were appointed. So I'm going to look forward to seeing you on the bench. Thank you.
I appreciate that very much, Councilor. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Councilor Duff.
Thank you. Deep apologies for being so late.
Oh, that's okay. I've been busy.
I was going to tell you, it's almost 2 hours in that car. It caught me a little bit off guard today. Had a great talk with you. We played a lot of phone tag. But loved meeting with you, and you're eminently qualified. Had a great meeting with DA Ryan the other night, who spoke very highly.
Oh, that's nice.
I'm not going to rehash things that have already been said. I do want to reiterate something that I heard the chairman say, is that the Judicial Nominating Commission works extremely hard for no pay.
Yes.
And some people don't really understand how it works, that because we have a constant churn in the courts, because you are required, to retire at the age of 70, which is, I'm sure people are ready for, but because this is not easy lifting. The way that they've used a management technique, which is highly employed in upper level echelons of, they split the candidates in half interviews one, half interviews the other, and then they get together and discuss them. So it's not like your paperwork hasn't been looked at by everybody. It has been, and they've discussed you, and if they have questions, they follow up with it. And I think it's dangerous for the public to think that they're not doing their job and that this administration is remiss in some way, because they're not. They're not at all. And people know I've been critical of the administration for things that I don't agree with, but on this particular thing, I have a master's degree in management and in organizational development in this happens to be one of the techniques that is employed by upper level management. And I applaud Governor Baker for doing it, frankly. I think it streamlines the process and it allows us to get vacancies into the courts as fast as we can. And the courts are under great strain and stress, especially during COVID. And, if we only did one hearing a week, things would come to a screeching halt and it would be a disaster. And so we are committed to doing our work. Every single one of us interviews every single person who sits there. We may not all go to a diner, but we all interview them and we all do our work in due diligence. And we're all very committed to it, as is the JNC and the governor and lieutenant governor, even when I don't agree with them. They're trying to do the right thing. So you were a result of that. We had I found my conversation with you joyous, which I thought is fine. The things we talked about that didn't have to do with law at all, that had to do with, as I always say, the things that can't be quantified. And you are blessed with many of those and with a fabulous family and a wonderful support system. So I'm not going to rehash everything we talked about. There's no need to. And I thank you, Councilor Jubinville, for your leadership and for chairing the meeting today.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll be voting on you next week, God willing, and the creeks don't rise. And, this meeting's
Thank you
over.
all very much.